Hi, all you good investors. Welcome to today's show. I'm so excited. I've got Joe Reynolds here from Catalyst Community Finance. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Tim. I'm so excited for this episode. We're going to have a good time.
We're going to have a great time. You're wearing your party hat.
Yep.
I've got my red Christmas sweater on. So we are sort of ready to go because we've got a very sort of holiday edition of good investing today. I'm just assuming that people are as bad of shoppers as I am and
Yeah.
have so many people on their list they just don't know what to get for. At this point, it's too late to be able to order anything for delivery anyway. So what do you get for that person on your list that has absolutely everything? You can get them an impact investment. So we're here.
What is that, Tim?
So an impact investment, this is, really it could be a community bond. It could be a preference share in a cooperative. These are investments, actual investments. So it's not a donation. We're not donating money in someone's name. Instead, we're buying them an investment, meaning that we're investing money in a nonprofit or a co-op or a social enterprise that's going to have a financial return, but it's also going to generate a positive impact. We're going to get those warm fuzzies. And there are so many different impact investments available that, Joe, I'm so happy to have you here to go through them with me. Has anyone ever gotten you an impact investment as a gift?
No, not as a gift. Of course, I have some of these that are on the list that we've talked about today, but I'm not as a gift. And I'm thinking just now, as you're speaking, that my eldest is so excited about getting into the investment world, Tim. I think maybe I'll buy him something because I think if I can give them something that has a good social and environmental return on top of making money, yeah, then I'll be way ahead. It'll be good.
That's
I'm
great.
gonna
And
do
we'll get them hooked. We'll get them hooked.
yeah, yeah.
Right. And this will be the first impact investment of many. I think this is great. And also, there's no problem treating yourself. Right. For us, like you can get it for someone else, but this is also a great thing to get for yourself. We do absolutely want to encourage people to treat themselves with an impact investment. So let's jump into it. We've got a whole bunch of options here. We're going to do this as sort of a holiday shopping guide, a list of different impact investments. I keep a list of these things on my website. So we'll drop a whole bunch of links in the show notes so that people have them. But on my website, goodinvesting.com, I've got some free resources. I've got this list of impact investments. These things do shift over time. So oftentimes the window opens and they become available and then they sell out and the window closes and you can't buy them anymore. So these are the ones that are currently available. And I do try to keep this list updated. So if you are sort of listening to this in the back catalog and we're speaking to you in the future, just know that the options might be a little bit different in the future, but certainly the sentiment is going to be the same. The first one on our list is from an impact investment platform called GoParity. GoParity does micro lending. These are going to be micro loans to social enterprises across Canada. So really, really cool platform. And what we love about GoParity is that this is often the lowest minimum investment, that we can start with just $10. So what does GoParity have going on right now?
Well, right now, Tim, coming up and will be a really interesting company called Spirit Bear Coffee Company. And Spirit Bear, they're based in Vancouver, BC, and it's actually Canada's first national Indigenous coffee company. They are organic and fair trade certified coffee blends, and their products are sold in over 600 locations across Canada, which is kind of quite impressive. Their brand is guided by the seven grandfather teachings, principles of wisdom, love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, and truth. But like many small businesses, Tim, during COVID, it was a challenging time and they needed some upfront capital. So they're looking now to replace what was an expensive loan at that time. They want to replace that with a more affordable financing. And so through GoParity, they're offering an investment opportunity. It is a 5-year term, and you actually get a 5.5% interest rate, which is pretty good and steady for 5 years. And you get paid on monthly installments, which is pretty impressive. And they're looking to raise $55,000 in funding. So a very reasonable amount. And they're going to, with that, they'll refinance a portion of their high interest loan that they had. And that just makes them more viable and more strong as a company. And if you go to their link, which Tim will share, you'll also see that there are some little bonus coffee dividends that they're going to be sharing. So that's a pretty neat thing. So depending on what you purchase in terms of the what you invest in, you get a little coffee dividend, which is a little treat on top.
I
So we'll
love
leave
it.
it
That's
there.
so cool. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. And I mean, I want to remind everyone that neither Joe nor myself are investment advisors. We're just really doing this for the love of impact investments. So we want to encourage you to, do a little homework before you do decide to invest, and certainly only do it with a small percentage of your overall portfolio. And what's great about GoParity is that they are a platform, so they've got different offerings that come and go. This is the one that's available right now, Spirit Bear Coffee Company. They do have digital gift cards, which is great. Now, when it comes to the rest of them, the rest of the impact investments we're talking about, it is going to be a little bit trickier. They often don't have these formal gift cards, so it's a little bit awkward if you do want to give this as a gift. That you're going to want to, give them a card, cut them a check. You can give them hard cash or send an e-transfer, but to make these investments, it is going to require a SIN number as well as banking information. So really the process for this, if you do want to give someone an impact investment over the holidays, is you're going to want to essentially give them the cash and then hold their hand as they decide. You can listen to this podcast together. You can look at the list together, choose an impact investment unless you know them so well that you know which one they're going to want. But then you are going to have to hold their hand as they do their paperwork and to be able to invest. But I would love to get some Spirit Bear coffee dividends
Yeah.
as a little stocking stuffer. That would be super cool.
On the GoParity site, it's great because they tell you about the company, the impact that it's making in the community, but you can also see the financial health of the organization. So you can make an informed decision. But as you said, Tim, these are opportunities for people to invest where it makes sense for them to do so, not to put all their money in, but to put a little bit of in that they can afford and see that return come with that social and environmental impact on top of it.
So the next one's on the list. I'm going to talk a little bit about are involved in supportive housing. So supportive housing is a really, really cool thing. This is, so many of us understand that our neighbors are struggling with homelessness and addiction and mental health issues, and these things go hand in hand. So supportive housing nonprofits exist across Canada, are really bent on tackling this problem with a housing first strategy, which I absolutely adore. Let's get people into stable housing, but then not only provide them with housing, but also the supports that they need to be able to get back on their feet, which is just so cool. So this is something near and dear to my heart. The first one I've got is Kaleidoscope Social Impact. They're based out of St. John, New Brunswick. They started as a community loan fund, and they've now got this really cool impact offering. Minimum investment is $500. You're locked in for 3 years, earning 2.5% per year. The second option is SHIP, which stands for Services and Housing in the Province. This is out of Brampton, Ontario. And these are available Canada-wide. So you don't have to be in the city or in the province, but obviously for those warm fuzzies, if you are local, if you live in Brampton or you know someone who lives in Brampton, this would be a great one to be able to look at. For SHIP, it's $1,000 minimum. The term is from 3 years up to 6-year term, and offering 3% a year up to 4.5% a year. And then the last one I've got is Redwood Park Community. So this is in Simcoe County, Ontario. So Barrie and, surrounding areas up there. A $2,500 minimum, ranges from 4 years up to 7 years, and you can earn 3% up to 4.5%. So this is really, really important. I know so many of us over the holidays, we're really so privileged. If you've got, a warm place and, nice meal to have and all those things, not everyone is so fortunate. So for those of us looking to help people who are less fortunate, kind of help people off the streets, these are amazing organizations doing amazing work. We know we need more supportive housing. The question is always, how do we pay for it? Well, guess what? Community bonds are a really cool way to help these organizations finance their housing projects. So, really, really happy to be able to shout out those organizations.
Wow, Tim, those are amazing examples of communities coming together to make a difference through community finance. It's really exciting to see. So now I'm going to get a chance to talk about sort of low and middle income housing opportunities. So the first one I'm going to speak to is called United Housing. These are United Housing community bonds, and this is the one I'm going to talk about is taking place in Listwell, which I believe is north of Cambridge. I have not been there myself, but they are
I go
actually.
through Listowel all the time. I know
Oh,
that.
you
I know
do?
that city well.
Okay.
Yeah, because I go to Lake Huron.
Oh,
So I
nice.
drive from Toronto to Lake Huron. So I'm always going through
So
Listowel
it's a pretty
area.
small town, right?
Yeah.
Is it like is it north of Cambridge, Ontario?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
sort of like if I from Toronto, I kind of go kind of due west. So if I were going through Cambridge, I'd be sort of going southwest. So yeah, I'd say
Oh,
north
yeah.
of Cambridge, and it's kind of on my way to Lake Huron.
Beautiful.
It's certainly not a big city, but it's not the smallest town. It's kind of one of these
Okay.
very charming, quaint Ontario towns.
Well, I'll have to go there and take a visit. But what they're doing now is they're taking an old building that was a dance hall from 1895, well into the 1970s, and they're giving it a new, fresh chapter of mixed income apartments. They're creating 10 mixed-use rental units out of this renovation, and it's going to be called the Music Hall Apartments, which is
Oh,
great.
I
10
love
rental
it.
units, 2 commercial units, and this is where people can put their money to good work. And they have 3 series of community bonds. The first Series C, I'll start, is a minimum of $1,000. So that's accessible for most of us with a 5-year term. And it's a 2.5% annual interest, and it's just paid annually. And then their Series B is $5,000 minimum, and that's also a 5-year term, and it's a 3% annual interest. You can see the more you put in, you tend to get a higher interest. So the Series A is a minimum of 25,000, and it's actually a 7-year term with a 3.5% interest. And you'll notice having longer terms is really important in order to be able to get all of this work done and to recognize the commitment. The interest rate goes up a little bit each time, but still you're getting a return on that money plus, their principal back, and you're helping to create 10 new unique spaces for mixed income folks to live in their community. So it's pretty exciting. And there's some good information on their website about the risks of purchasing the bond, what happens if when their bond matures, who's eligible and managing the investment process. So there's lots of really good information to help people learn about this type of product because maybe those who are listening, Tim would like to try doing this in their own community.
Yeah, and it's really cool with a lot of these groups. We can give a shout out to Tapestry Community Capital, which is sort of the administrator for a lot of these community bonds. And so you'll notice a lot of them are very similar, especially the ones that are structured as community bonds. A lot of them in the housing space are where we've got these sort of 3 different offerings. I usually nudge people towards the smaller one. Hey, if someone wants to buy a $25,000 bond for me for the holidays, I'll happily take that. But I think for most of us, we will start at the lower end of that spectrum just to get comfortable. And what's great is that they do have those FAQs. So for all of these different organizations, it's really nice to be able to standardize that information and you can get exactly what you're looking for. But there are some others that are doing this sort of
Yeah.
low middle income housing, right?
So yeah, let me tell you, there's another one right in the Ottawa Center. It's a 2 groups coming together, the Ottawa Community Land Trust, excellent organization, together with the Centretown Citizens Ottawa Corporation. So they are doing the Housing Forever Bonds 2025, and that's pretty exciting to see this come together. And they've got a lot of good information about what these bonds are and the projects. The first series is 3 years, and it's $1,000, and also 2.75, so kind of similar to United. And then it goes up to a 5-year term or a 7-year term. The 5-year term is a minimum of a $5,000 purchase. They've got a 7-year term for 50,000 at 3.5%, and then their Series D is a 5-year term at $10,000. So some of these are maybe bigger than what people expect, but there is a way in for a variety of groups. And what's interesting to note is and this is something that the field is working towards, is that their Series D, which is the 5-year term, is actually RRSP and TFSA eligible, which means that you can take some of your investments that you already have and just transfer it into this bond,
Yeah,
which is
and
great.
let's talk about that for a minute because I
Sure.
get this question all the time.
Okay, I
And in
bet you
fact,
do.
I published my list and people are like, Tim, which of these are RSP and TFSA eligible? And for me, my take on it, Joe, is that
Yeah.
I usually don't suggest that people do it in their registered
Okay.
accounts. The reason for this is that it's a bit of a pain to hold
Okay.
these things as registered, that you often have to open up a separate account. There's a wonderful organization, CWCF, Canadian Workers Cooperative Federation, who I love. I adore them. And this is what they do. They administer these RSPs and TFSAs, and they will let you hold certain community bonds inside of them. But there are annual fees associated with opening the account. It's extra paperwork, so it's a little more administrative, and there are
Mm.
annual fees. And what I find is that the break even for the sort of the tax savings to be worth the annual fees, you have to be investing at least 10K. That's why I think they have that 10K minimum. And what I
Right.
find is that for most people that have a lot of room in their RSPs and TFSAs, so these are people who are just getting started, they don't have very large portfolios, so they have lots of room in their tax shelters. I don't want them to put in, 10K, 20K plus. That's too big of a slice. If you've only got $50,000, I don't want you to put $10,000 into community bonds. Not yet. That's too big of a slice. And then for people who have lots of money, if you're a millionaire, if you've got like a $2 million worth of investments, well, guess what? Your RSPs and TFSAs are already maxed out. So I find most people, the best solution is just to hold it as unregistered. You just pay the taxes. It saves you a little bit in fees, saves you a little bit in paperwork. It does mean that we're paying taxes on those impact investments. But what I find is that like 90% of folks that I speak to just don't even bother doing sort of the RSP TFSA route. I do wish that something you and I know we've talked about it, Joe, where we would love for more financial institutions to let us hold these things inside of our registered accounts. But for right now, I don't want folks to get stuck on the sort of RSP TFSA eligibility.
Yeah.
Community bonds and a lot of these investments are eligible, right, or could be, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best idea to hold them there.
Okay, that's good. Let's like hold on to your thoughts because we are in the present and we're just going to go with what we've got. Even though, as someone, as part of Catalyst Community Finance, and I think about the field and where we're going and to know that there is such high potential for communities to organize capital that serves their community well, I hope that we'll be able to get more easy pathways in the future for people to invest, in a safe way, in an informed way, and an easier way, because I think we'll be able to do so much more, even more than what's being done. But right now, with the Ottawa Community Land Trust and the Centre Town Citizens Ottawa Corporations, these bonds are really going towards, low interest second mortgage financing to acquire and preserve over 50 affordable homes. So just imagine that. It'll help to support pre-development costs and laying the groundwork for the construction of these new affordable housing in Ottawa. So
Love
that's
it.
that's a combined collaboration of being able to support 50 new affordable homes in Ottawa. That's a significant difference you're making this season with your holiday shopping.
No question.
So, Tim, the next one I want to talk about is actually in Montreal, and it's Brick Brick. And this is a really, really, really special place, and it is really community driven. They are also offering a bonds, but they are building a community housing and economic development for mostly newcomers to Montreal, and also like a deep community engagement and community belonging. So they have three bonds: the Access Bond, and it's again a 1K minimum, and it's a 3% annual interest over a 3-year term. So you'll get to know that a lot of these terms are sounding similar, right? Some that with just a little bit of difference in between, but similar range. The Action Bond, which is their second one, is a 4% annual interest, and it's a 5-year term, and they have a 5K minimum. And then their Solidarity Bond is a 7-year term, and it's a 15K minimum. So, these are bonds that that may be accessible for people. I know I began with the 1K, and I felt like that's not with this particular one, but when I first started, because that's what I could afford. And that was great. I did that, and then I've been able to afford a little bit more, but I'm no no high net worth individual, so I gotta invest in what I can afford to do. And I'm really happy that they have these kinds of places for different ranges. So once again, this is a community of investors. They're based in Montreal, but you can invest anywhere. I'm pretty sure you can invest from anywhere. And yeah, you should check them out. Brick by Brick, really inspirational group, doing a really good job. Now, I've got another one, so don't stop. It's called Gather Housing. So their goal is accessing acquisition and pre-development financing for nonprofit housing providers. So their goal is to raise 15 million in community bonds for site acquisition and pre-development of new construction projects. Wow, they've got a big range. They've got a bond series A to E, and I'm just going to say it's from a 1,000 investment right to a $150,000 investment.
Hey,
Okay,
if someone wants to gift me $150,000 bond, I will happily
you will take
accept
it.
that.
We'll happily accept it and we'll happily invest it into Gather Housing. Absolutely. They are looking to aim to build 500 new affordable homes across Southern Ontario by 2030. That is their goal that you would be part of. So they're looking to have these homes being really safe and light filled and thoughtfully designed, and 1 to 2 to 3 bedroom apartments. So really hard to find affordable housing like that for families. And this is what the type of housing that they're looking to get off the ground.
Gather is an organization that has been started by our friends at Indwell.
Yeah,
And
they're
listeners
so
of the
great.
podcast, might recognize Indwell. I interviewed them over the summer as part of the Summer for Good series. And Indwell has been around for, I think, like 50 years. Like they've been around for a very long time. Their first community bond they did was supportive housing. They did it as a pilot project last year, aimed to raise $5 million. They end up oversold, and so they actually increased it up to $6 million. It was so successful that they like, okay, great, we'll raise $6 million, and then that worked out so well for them that they then, less than a year later turn around and are now doing this $15 million community bond raise. But instead of supportive housing, focused more on this low to middle income housing sort of area, which to me, it's all like affordable housing is so necessary, and it's sort of like pick your impact. But again, really cool organization. They operate across Southern Ontario. I know them so well because my hometown of London, Ontario, they renovated an old the Embassy Hotel and Suites, which is where I used to go and see concerts, and they wouldn't check our ID, Joe, so we could go and drink there when we were underage. But it was a bit of a dodgy hotel and venue there, and that they've taken that, which was in pretty rough shape, and they've now turned it into some amazing supportive housing units. So
Yeah.
just completely changing that street corner in London, and they've got operations across Southern Ontario. So
Yeah.
really, really love Indwell, and really excited for this sort of next chapter as they reimagine themselves as
Yeah, it's
Gather.
exciting. Inwell and Flourish have been building and care and creating caring communities since 1974. So they've got deep experience in building and managing these
Yeah,
types of properties. So
I
it is
love it.
exciting to see Gather take place. So tell us
Yeah.
now, Tim, a little bit about another favorite place of ours in Guelph, Ten
Yeah,
Garden.
so 10 Cardin. So, and again, a lot of these are Ontario focused. I think that, it's not that we don't love our neighbors in other provinces, but I do think that there is a bit of an impact investing center here in Ontario. I think I'm seeing a lot of people have caught on to this community bonds model. Part of it is our friends at Tapestry sort of started here in Toronto. Part of it is the success with the Center for Social Innovation, where you and
Yeah.
I have both spent some time, and CSI is no longer available. They sold out of their community bonds. So that is now
Yay.
a co-working space in Toronto that is 100% community owned. So shout out to CSI. But just like CSI is a co-working space, a space for social entrepreneurs where I started my business, Good Investing, in Guelph, they're so lucky to have 10C, which is 10 Cardin, that there's a co-working space that started at 10 Carden. They outgrew that address. So they moved down the street and they bought a building. How the heck does a nonprofit buy a building in downtown Guelph? Well, through community bonds. And they have a really nice community bond offering, $1,000 minimum. Again, they've got a few different series ranging from 3 years to 5 years. The interest rate, as you lock in for longer, it does go up. So it starts at 2.75% and it does go up to 4.5% at the high end. The reason for that is the liquidity risk, that when investors are locking in for a longer period of time, that we do expect a higher return. We're kind of taking some risk there that, interest rates aren't going to shoot up over that period of time. And so, to compensate us for that liquidity risk, we do get a higher rate. If we do, it's also usually a higher minimum, as you do sort of climb that ladder. But 10C is amazing. We love our good friends at 10C. I did interview Julia from 10C recently.
Yeah, that was fun to watch.
And that was a great episode. So, if folks want to learn more about that impact, we'll also give a little shout out that they've incubated Harvest Impact, which is really cool. I don't have specific terms about whether they've got an offering on the table. I think that's something that's sort of still being cooked up by them, but, something to look forward to. But Harvest Impact is going to be along the lines of sustainable food and helping to build a sustainable food ecosystem in Guelph, which we absolutely adore. So we love that. The next one we've got, you're going to take us over to Manitoba. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to take us out of Ontario to Manitoba with the Jubilee Fund, which is a social impact investing fund in Manitoba. So they launched in 2000, and it's Manitoba's only charitable ethical investment fund. And they're there to help nonprofits working to reduce the impact of poverty. Jubilee Fund is a registered Canadian charity, and their loan funds are raised through the Jubilee Investment Certificates. So these are funds that are supported through donations from individuals, foundations, corporations, and the Jubilee Fund memberships. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what the investment is like. So let's just see here. I'm on their website, Tim, and so this is how it works. So there's the Jubilee Investment Certificate, and they're purchased by individuals like you and me or an organization, and they can be held again for 3 to 5 year terms. The funds are managed by a financial institution and used to secure non-traditional loans for social impact partners. So that's interesting. So they can loan it out to the nonprofit. The JICs create a 1% less interest than the posted GIC rate. So they take a slightly lower interest rate. Oh, and they also, just as security, so people can recognize ways of de-risking these things, the Jubilee Fund has a loan loss reserve to protect investors from losses. So the reserve fund will take, if there ever is a default, the reserve fund goes there first.
Yeah.
But to date, no investor funds have been lost due to loan defaults, which is extraordinary, right? Just think
Incredible.
of that, It's surprising when the loan losses are so low. Not to say that there isn't risk. There's always risk. A big part of the success of these impact investments or these community finance tools, I find, Tim, is that the people know each other. There's relationships there, and they're there to help get through obstacles or barriers, to work through these projects together. And so it's more of a support as well as finance. And I think in that relationship, it helps to address things as they come up. So they
Yeah.
become more resilient, those loans to nonprofits. So I'd really encourage people, even if you don't live in Manitoba, and you should I encourage people to go check it out. Check out the Jubilee Fund, learn about what they do, because it might be something that works in your community, and you might be inspired to start something like that where you live. And
Yeah.
they're
And
really great people to talk to. They're very open and friendly, and I would definitely recommend getting to know them. Really good people.
no question. And, for anyone looking for an excuse to go to Manitoba, I'm going to take this
Exactly.
opportunity as a chance to plug what Catalyst has cooking. So you've
Yeah.
got a conference coming up in May. Is that
Yeah,
right?
we do. So Catalyst Community Finance is an amazing organization. Well, it's an amazing effort because it's not an organization, it's an initiative with a whole bunch of people across the country who are working on just the types of things that we're talking about. Ones that everyday folks can invest in, but also opportunities for other types of investors, institutional investors that can invest, get a return, and see some positive change happen. So this May 26th to the 29th, we are all going to be in Winnipeg for the National Community Finance Summit. And it's going to be a great time. People can share their ideas, they connect with one another, they really help move the field because there's a lot of activity happening across the country. And we want people to feel empowered to do, take, and learn and apply these things in their communities as well. So look out for the Catalyst Community Finance Summit. I know, Tim, you're going to be there, and
Yeah.
it's always good to see you.
It's
And
great.
I
It's
look
one of my
forward.
favorite conferences of the year. I'll be
That's
real that
great.
some of these conferences I go to are a little stiff. This one is not. This one is
This one,
fun.
yeah, this is
People
fun.
just show up as themselves. It's way more collaborative. It's way more interactive. I know you've led some like workshops and like working sessions and visioning stuff. I've done a World Cafe there is what I
Cool.
sort of hosted,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna have a lot of fun things that are interactive, but definitely in terms of getting to know people in the social finance community. And if you're looking for inspiration about like some of the coolest initiatives, some of the coolest people that are working on these projects, definitely
Mhm.
hope to see some folks there. We're going to come back to Ontario because Ontario has a number of renewable energy cooperatives that I absolutely love. So I just did a talk on, I leaned into the pun, my dad joke. I called it my community solar panel. And because I hosted a panel on community solar, which I just couldn't resist that pun.
I
And
just have to
so,
say, I love that you're using the dad joke.
yeah, yeah,
No? The dad
yeah.
joke.
Let's
So good.
go.
I love
let's
hearing that.
let's go. This is, I'm exhausted, but my jokes get worse. It's fantastic.
I love it.
Um,
I'll always laugh at your jokes.
and so, but it was been really cool. Like one place where I'm at is just understanding that, I think for too long, especially as it relates to climate, we've been waiting for politicians to save us.
Mm.
And I think we've just been waiting for regulation and taxes or policies or whatever. And I'm just like, no, it's not going to happen. If it happens, it's going to be too slow. The gap between good policy versus good politics is far too wide, in my opinion.
Yeah.
These are people that need to get reelected on an ongoing basis. So I'm done waiting for the politicians. For me, it's in terms of this green energy revolution, it's going to happen at the grassroots level. It's gonna be local people. It's going to be people putting solar panels on their roofs and batteries in their garages. And now not all of us can put like I rent. I can't put solar panels on my roof. I don't have a garage for a battery. So really, how do I get involved? Well, the way I do it is through renewable energy cooperatives. So these exist across the country, but what I found is the ones that have current available offerings are all in Ontario. Two of them are in the sort of Kitchener-Waterloo region. So Life Co-op and CED Co-op are two amazing organizations. All of these offer, instead of bonds, they offer what are called preference shares. So it's a little bit different. It's sort of a share that pays a dividend instead of an interest payment. This is a little bit more tax advantageous, that we pay lower taxes on dividends than we do on interest payments from bonds. So I do like that, but it does mean that the board of directors can, decide whether to pay with the dividend. They can decide to lower it or raise it. Whereas when it's a bond, when it's an interest payment, kind of the contract is saying, hey, you're going to get this interest rate. Whereas with the dividend, it can vary a little bit. But Life Co-op's great. It's $50 to get started with a preference share. There's no fixed term for them, and they pay, target from sort of 4.5% up to 5.5%. We've got Ottawa Renewable Energy Co-op. So if you're in Ottawa, $500 minimum. They are a 10-year term there. So, they are hoping that you're going to view this as a long-term thing. And they're targeting a 4% payout. I've got an upcoming episode with a board member from OREC. So, if you want to learn a little bit more, make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for that talk. And then CED Co-op, who's amazing. They've got a $5,000 minimum, again, sort of no fixed term. And they're just waiting. I emailed them to get their terms. Their previous one was 6%, but that seems pretty generous given sort of the interest rates right now. So I'm going to say that it's sort of TBD, and, keep an eye eye on the resource page that I've got, because as soon as they are able to announce it, I'll make sure that gets up there. So, if there are other renewable energy co-ops, if you're like, Tim, what about, XYZ, some co-op that has an offering that I'm not aware of, please send me an email, tim@goodinvesting.com. I do my best with this list to keep it updated, but it is by no means, exhaustive. That, a lot of these things do sort of come and go. And so I've done my best to keep it current. But if I'm missing something, by all means, let me know. But this is a great way to get involved. These are co-ops. So you do have to buy a membership share. So it's usually like $20 or something to buy a membership share to then be able to make these sort of further investments in the preference shares. But really cool way to be able to get involved in your local community, to be able to invest in renewable energy projects, even if you're not able to do so directly within your own home. But super, super cool there. And then I believe it's last, but certainly
Yeah.
not least. You want to take us home, Joe?
Yeah, I will. And that's a great invitation that you just put out there, Tim, for people to just keep you informed and updated because we need to know, where can we go? And I often have friends of mine asking me like, how do I see, how do I find these types of investments? And we have great platforms like the SVX, but coming to your platform at Good Investing is where you can find investments that are available or going to Tapestry or GoParity, as you said. So it's great for people to keep each other informed. So where we are now, this is fun because now we're going into a different area. We're going into agriculture and farming. And when we think about farmers getting started, there is so much that they have to take on to get started or to grow their farm or to just keep it going. And all of that, the onus is on the farmer to do it, but what they produce serves us all, and we love our farmers. And so the Fair Finance Fund was established to do that, to support, farmers and food producers to get affordable access to financing that'll help them grow. So they offer community bonds to people who want to support regional food systems, and that's really great. So food and farm social enterprises. So they have actually raised 4.4 million through community bonds,
Wow.
and they have over 100 investors, and they've distributed 5.2 million to Ontario food and farm enterprises, which is pretty cool. That's what's on their website. So, and the other thing that's on the Fair Finance Food website are all the examples of where they've put their investments. And I think people will be really inspired to check it out. So, they have two different types of bonds. One is 5,000 minimum investment, and it's for 5 years, up to 2%. You can choose up to 2%. And then the other is a 50,000, and that's, I guess, for more institutional investors. And that's a 5-year term, and it's up to 3%. So that's just another example of how, then you do, even though it's like a 2% return, you get your principal back and that 2%, and you've helped support all kinds of people get access to affordable money that they need to be able to grow the food that feeds us all. So I'm really happy to end with the Fair Finance Fund. It's one of my most favorite places and organizations. They've got the Nourish Fund in there, and they just are an amazing group of people. Really just get to know them and get to see what they have to offer.
Absolutely. And this is so, this is why we want to do a little gift guide, because when you are giving the gift of an impact investment, what you're doing is you're giving someone not only like the principal amount, because to Joe's point, you get paid that back. If you invest 5K, like they're getting that 5K back at the end of the term. Hopefully they'll reinvest it. And this is like a recyclable philanthropy. Like you can just keep reinvesting it, but they don't have to. You are giving them that gift of the principal. You're also giving them the gift of the interest payments. So in this case, 2% every single year, direct deposited in their bank account. You're also giving them the education, understanding impact investments and what is it. This experiential learning is fantastic. And then also to your point, Joe, we are giving people the gift of community. That I think by investing in these impact investments, that sort of my real hope is that it's more than just an investment, that this does make us feel connected to the impact, to that community, to these incredible organizations. So many of them, yes, it can be sort of a one off sometimes, but for the most part, these are sort of umbrella organizations. Like with Fair Finance Fund, it's not only the Fair Finance Fund as the organization, but all of those lists of the recipients of their loans. There's some really, really cool companies, social enterprises in there, right? And they're all part of this Fair Finance Fund community. So, just really love that when we talk about a traditional investment, we talk about risk versus return. Whereas when we're talking about impact investments, it really is about the risk versus the return plus the warm fuzzies. And the warm
Yeah.
fuzzies can be the impact, right? It can be this gift that you're giving. It can be the community. It can be all of these wonderful tangential benefits that people get. But really want to encourage folks, if you're an impact investor, if you're listening to this podcast, wouldn't shock me if you already own an impact investment. Give that gift to somebody else if you're able to. At the same time, if you've never done this yourself, right, and you are sort of a newbie when it comes to this, really want to encourage you, make your first impact investment, put it on your to-do list, give that gift to yourself. I promise you will not be disappointed. This is the best gift you can give yourself or somebody else. Joe, thank you so much for joining me. This has been an absolute delight going through this little holiday gift guide.
What a
Uh,
great idea. I'm so glad we did this together, Tim. Like, what a treat to have this time with you and to go through all of this hope, right? All of this inspiration. I think and during these times, like, we really need to know that there are so many good things happening right in the communities that we live in. And that's from people who are imaginative and creative and creating structures that can really help people in our communities meet their potential. So there's a great invitation to participate in something hopeful together.
Absolutely. Joe Reynolds is co manager at Catalyst Community Finance. Joe, thank you so much for everything you do.
Have a great holiday season.